One of these tortoises in front of me is brand new to science, and we happen to have a group of them right here at Garden State Tortoise. These tortoises may all appear very similar to you guys, and it is true to some extent, when in fact each one is quite different. Welcome to the North African Greek tortoises. Testudo graeca is a species complex commonly known as the spur-thighed or Greek tortoises. But, contrary to popular belief, Greek tortoises don't really occur in Greece, with the exception of one subspecies that we'll save for a totally different video. You are looking at animals that are native to countries in North Africa. So let's get familiar with them real quick before we talk about this brand new animal. Quite possibly the most easily identifiable Greek tortoise or spur-thighed tortoise from North Africa is going to be the Libyan Greek, Testudo graeca cyrenaica. This animal has an elongated carapace. It's pretty large. It can grow to be 8 or 9 inches, especially for females. It has a bell shape and it has a yellow carapace that's littered with beautiful black rosettes and almost as if it looks like a Dalmatian dog. All of them look like this. Some of them are darker than others, but they are pretty easily recognizable when it comes to this difficult group of animals. Next up is going to be the beautiful and more flatter-shelled Moroccan tortoise or Moroccan Greek tortoise, Testudo graeca maroccensis. This animal flares out more, sometimes has a trapezoidal shape, even in females, which is more often associated with males when it comes to Mediterranean or North African tortoises such as these. It also has a lot of striations on the plastron, and overall a very distinct look, and the ground color is usually more of a beige or brown than a bright yellow. Another quite well-known tortoise from North Africa is the little Tunisian spur-thighed tortoise, Testudo graeca nabulensis. This animal is known for having a very small size, usually between 4 and 5 inches. However, there is quite a bit of variation there. A more sand or beige colored carapace and very almost carefully placed or designed black markings on the shell scutes. Some compare these to the Western Hermann's tortoise, which is known for that really deep, easily noticeable contrast between the ground color and the dark pigment on the plastron. They also usually have quite a bit of black pigment on the plastron. It varies, but in my opinion, the most notable trait of the Tunisian tortoise is going to be the head, where they have a very distinct bright patch on the top of it and also a bird beak shape to the beak. We'll skip over this one for a minute and go straight to the Algerian tortoise. Now, this is a young animal. This animal will get quite large. In fact, some of them are known to surpass 13 inches in carapace length, especially for females. These animals have way less of a definitive design on the carapace, and you can see it almost looks as though somebody just shot some black paint right on top of the carapace. Their colors do vary, and as they get older, they sometimes turn a uniform beige or even cream color, and they tend to have a little bit more of a flatter carapace than what you would see in the Libyan tortoise. So, there's your quick introduction to the North African Greek tortoises. There's way more variation than that, and there's even some more subspecies or locality variants out there that, again, we could save for another time. The star of this show is going to be this tiny, full-grown Greek or spur-thighed tortoise right here. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the Tripolitanian tortoise. This animal was just described for the first time by science. Okay, so let's simplify things a little bit. We've given you the introduction to these beautiful North African spur-thighed or Greek tortoises. So what's the difference between a species and a subspecies? Well, a species is a group of animals that can interbreed with each other and create fertile offspring. Subspecies is a ranking below species, and that means that these animals come from a distinct population where they have physical traits that are differentiated from the full species. But genetics and taxonomy is a taxing and funny thing that sends a lot of frustration to wildlife lovers like ourselves and probably some of you watching. I'm a splitter. That goes for snakes, lizards, turtles, and everything in between. But a lot of people don't like to split these animals up. Clearly, there are differences, and they are not just externally, they are also internally. And the genetics happened to reveal that this tortoise is something new and something special. And guess what? I happen to be a friend of the person that started this whole endeavor and made this possible. So let's put these animals all back into their enclosures, head inside, and get on the phone with Paul Rattay. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Paul Rattay. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. A little early over here, but I'm glad that, I see that you're also baseball cap morning. I'm
Yes.
also doing a baseball cap morning myself.
It's also because I've been stubborn with getting a haircut, but, what are you going to do, right?
Right.
You are the mastermind, the one responsible for discovering that we have a brand new species of Greek, or subspecies of Greek tortoise here. And I remember the very early days, as if we're not even talking like 10 years ago or something, this is just in the last couple of years, where these brand new little tortoises came in accidentally with the shipments of Cyrenaica, the Libyan Greek tortoises, and it seemed that anybody who had a sharp enough eye with identifying testudo saw something right away. What I first want to know from you is what set this off? What was the first notion before you and I had even talked? How did this come to fruition?
Yeah. So, the history more than most people. Like, Libyan tortoises didn't really come in for a long time. It was well over a decade. Mm-hmm. And suddenly in 2021, while randomly, looking at the forums, I saw that someone posted, some Libyan tortoises. And I was like, wow, you never see those. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up, just quickly saying, I'll take those. Mm-hmm. When they arrived, and I noticed right away, these don't look like the classically described Cyrenaica Libyans. 3 of them did, and 3 of them didn't. And then that's kind of what set the ball in motion. I probably reached out to you. I reached out to a number of other folks, just kind of, saying, look at these. What do you think about these? And that's kind of where it all started.
Where did it go from there?
It was sort of a deep dive into, whatever internet options I had, right? So I kind of entered some of the Facebook forums, including ones that were exclusively Arabic speaking. I was kind of speaking to people using Google Translator, and I was looking for photos. I was kind of combing, sort of the historical archives of like the Libyan tortoise forum, the Egyptian forums where a lot of trafficking kind of happens, but obviously like a lot of conservation people have used trafficking data as an indicator of things, and there's lots of photographs there, right? So in doing that, just started seeing the pattern. Definitely looked like the Tunisian tortoises, but then there were certain attributes that was like, okay, they don't have this, and they don't look like that.
So where do we go from there?
Because I was just really sort of debating how I could find, a source to do DNA testing. Some individuals reached out to me with some input, and, in pretty quick order, I learned, that there weren't very many options within the U.S., and they don't really want to talk to anybody in the private sector, right? So I really couldn't get any bites there, and eventually was pointed to this lab in the Netherlands, Agendica.
So you have the tortoises. We know there's something different. You do your research. Further research is backing up this notion. Again, maybe they're Tunisians, maybe they're not. So you send off these samples to Agendica.
When we got the results on the 17 tortoises, pretty clearly, like all of the, sort of the Cyrenaica Libyans fell into the C clade. And then that was the first time we learned that these other ones fell into this E clade, because we were like, what's E? It's not in any documents. It's not in any of the research papers that we read.
And again, for viewers to understand what we're talking about with clades here, different animals in a species complex can fall into different clades, which is a group of animals that has common ancestors, just to kind of, for lack of a more scientific way of saying it so everybody can understand.
Yeah, the really great thing about this DNA record is it's pretty definitive, and these fell into this little segment. They were all E1. I started partnering with a bunch of people that know this way better than me. Obviously, I don't know anything about DNA. I'm just citizen scientist, kind of nerding my way through this.
Yeah. And were you able to find out why that was in the database or how it ended up there?
This one single E1 record in the GenBank database came from an animal that was tested, that was found in 2017 of unknown origin. I think the animal was found in a market in Libya.
That's really interesting too, because a lot of people don't realize that there is a massive trade route, that goes on, whether it's North Africa or the Middle East with these animals, where laws are different. In certain aspects of it, quotas can be filled, and this, removal of them from the wild and bringing them to markets or even eventual export to other countries is very commonplace. And when you're talking about a decent-sized country and you're talking about the Testudo greca species complex, you're talking about a massive headache to begin with, because there's so much variation within a given population anyway that, so that's important for people to understand. You can't just pin something because this animal came from a specific market. So what were the major steps now that led to this actually coming to life? And can you speak a little bit on the headache that it was?
Sure. I mean, this is where I relied on my co-author's experience as well to kind of lay out, so if we wanted to prove this, these are all the deliverables. The DNA evidence is one of them. Obviously, we would need to prove where they are. Through a lot of the folks that I had started reaching out to on the Libya forums, I was referred to this, biology student in Darna, Libya, Murad Bouharblil. I'm probably slaughtering his name, but he ended up being just an incredible boots on the ground partner that sort of facilitated, a lot of this, the field work, but also some of the speculative stuff that we had. And then through Murad, we eventually, sort of got, a group together to basically target, a field expedition in Western Libya. They were going based on GPS coordinates that, that I obtained from Willie Schneider. They found 7 tortoises. Wow. And those 7 tortoises became the target of, what we sampled, sent to Gendica, and then we got the news, I forget, at some point in 2023 that these were in fact also E1.
So now we've got the animals in their native range, in their locality, and the animals all the way over here in the United States of America in the private sector with the same genetic makeup. So what happens next?
As part of our list of deliverables, we had to preserve animals, for a holotype in an institution.
Right. You needed a dead specimen to be preserved in an institution like a museum, a credible museum.
Our good partner, and that's the Field Museum of Chicago.
Wonderful.
We worked with them on, their requirements. We didn't euthanize any tortoises as part of this. Unfortunately, these, I think by now, they're very sensitive in captivity. These are not great pets. No. And we had many mortalities. We had to select any of the DNA tested tortoises that died that are referenced in the paper.
Wow. Okay, yeah. So then to sum this up, what was the final thing here that gave you guys clearance, and how did it get released?
We started really just shopping around and saying who would be a good partner for us, and quickly sort of decided that basic and applied herpetology was a good publication for us. I want to say there were like 7 or 8 or 9 iterations of the paper.
That must have been such a huge relief and weight lifted off your shoulders when they finally accepted it, right?
If you look at the point at which I purchased these tortoises to the time that it was published, it was like 3.5 years, right? Which honestly is probably fast for something like this.
So Paul, thank you. This was awesome. This is a first for you guys getting to see this. This is not something that I can guarantee you will ever happen on our channel or anybody's channel again. I'm going to leave links to the paper and links for people to follow you guys. Congratulations to you, Aaron, Steve, everybody else involved in this massive, amazing undertaking. But don't you guys go anywhere, because it just so happens that 2 of these tortoises were just hatched right here in the United States of America, and we have them with us right now. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Mark De Silva. Mark is an exceptional keeper of turtles and tortoises, a friend of mine. Mark hatched these, the very first 2 Tripolitania tortoises in the United States, and again, possibly in captivity in the world. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit about how this came to happen, because this is huge, man.
Actually, 2 years ago, I came to your place with Anthony.
That's right.
And I saw these in your yard and I fell in love. I was like, oh my God, look how small the adults were. And I'm like, I want to work with this species. So now I have a 1.4 is what I have right now.
Okay. Was this, I remember you sending me the videos and the photos of how things were going. Was this the first time one of the females laid and they were fertile, or did you end up getting infertile eggs first?
Pairing happened while I had them.
Oh, cool.
And then it was the first eggs laid from a captive pairing that I know of. So I only got 2 eggs, but both eggs were fertile.
Wow. So I want to add to that right there, like what we brought up was that it was an actual captive pairing of these animals because these animals being recent in the keeper trade, the pet trade, there hasn't really been much of this. So if somebody were to get eggs, it's essentially leftover sperm that the female was carrying from being a wild tortoise out in Libya. And then the animals lay eggs in captivity. Sometimes people get lucky and the eggs are fertile. Other times, like in our case, the eggs were no good. So not only did you acclimate the animals, get them comfortable enough to breed, but you paired them. They did in fact breed, you got fertile eggs, and now we have 2 incredibly healthy, and I'll say the word like I say it all the time, robust animals. I know you guys can't hold them like I just did, but their shells are rock solid already. And how old are they?
They were born in October.
So October, November, December, January. These are 4-month-old baby tortoises, and already they are exhibiting traits of just being in tip-top shape and ultimate health, which is another massive move for this species under captive management. Now, how did you incubate these? Was this just a shot in the dark? Did you follow other parameters for testudos?
I have worked with Egyptians,
Okay.
so I followed what I was doing for the Egyptians. I tried to incubate for male because there seems to be a shortage of males out there for the population that's here in the US.
But the Egyptian tortoise was an excellent species for Mark to compare the incubation protocols to, because all these North African Greek tortoises and the Egyptian tortoises, they're very close in ranges there. Some of them even occur together. So you've got tortoises from Libya where the Egyptian tortoise also occurs. And in fact, some literature states that there aren't really any Egyptian tortoises really left in Egypt. They're all in Libya. So definitely smart to follow that kind of protocol in terms of successfully incubating these eggs. Testudo eggs can take some humidity, but once you get them too wet, they will start to crack, infection takes place, and it can kill a developing embryo. So let's bring up something else here. Earlier in this video, you guys saw me compare the adults of all of these amazing North African Greek tortoise species and just how similar some of them are. Well, these aren't the only captive bred babies we happen to have here. I have, which you guys may have seen in other videos, 2 USA captive bred and born Libyan Greek tortoises, Testudo graeca cyrenaica. So we have a classically and historically known Greek tortoise right here, and a brand new one. Mark, I can't say it enough. This is so monumental. This is such a huge leap and just A+ for this brand new Greek tortoise. I bet you never thought you would do this.
No,
Huh?
I never did. I never did. This was a really cool experience considering this is only the 3rd species I've ever worked with. So
Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's an epic 3 that you've done too, you know?
Yeah.
Russian tortoise, Egyptian tortoise, and now Tripolitania tortoise. I want to thank you so much for bringing these babies here and allowing us to show them in the video. Again, guys, this is a first. And who knows if you're going to see it again. We're all trying really, really hard to breed these sensitive little tortoises that are brand new to science and brand new to the hobby. But people like Mark are doing amazing, good work. So again, I can't thank you enough, man. Seriously.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for your help with this, by the way.
Oh, no problem. Super, super exciting. Again, guys, here you go. Tripolitanian tortoises in the flesh, Testudo graeca tripolitania. And not only did we get to talk to the person that got this whole thing going and ultimately was the one that made this come to a reality, but we also got to witness in the flesh the very first to captive born and bred Tripolitanians here in the United States of America and possibly anywhere. We don't really know where else this could be going on. Not very many of these animals did come in. You heard what Paul said, you heard what I've been talking about, where a lot of these unfortunately did not survive because they are fragile and sensitive, and in fact the males were the ones that really suffered. Paul seems to think there may be only around 15 known males, including the ones that we have here at Garden State Tortoise, as far as this species goes, in terms of representatives for them here on American soil. But people are being responsible with them. We're all so excited about them, and we want to see more captive bred ones come about, because that is what the ultimate goal here is. These tortoise populations are so precious and so sensitive in nature, and now with the revelation and the reveal of this as a new subspecies, well, of course that could bring some negativity on too. Paul brought up an interesting point though when we were still talking after filming. None of this would be possible without the prior research that has been done. All of these turtle and tortoise fanatics, scientists, taxonomists, and even especially testudo fanatics, these animals would not be what they are today. There wouldn't be the possibility of describing a new species or subspecies had there not been prior work already done on them. So kudos to everybody since the start of this whole thing that's been involved. And some of you might be wondering, why is it so important? What is the big deal, especially when you see an animal that is so similar to other species or subspecies within its own genus? This is the future. This is how these animals will be around for generations to come, to see their species into the future, both under preservation and of course conservation, because species and subspecies can easily become lost. And more often than not, when you hear that something is threatened or endangered, you're thinking habitat loss, illegal poaching, climate change, all kinds of things like that. But there's another big factor there, and that is impurity. Impurity affects sensitive animals such as tortoises and their populations in nature. And I've said it a million times, and I will say it again. The Western Hermann's tortoise is no exception to this rule. There are hybrids in nature gaining traction as they continue to pollute the bloodlines, not just in captivity, but in nature. It's a real thing. It is so imperative that we know who is who through genetic research and of course learning the morphological traits. Every single one of these tortoises can be physically identified, but it takes a very seasoned, trained eye. Usually when you hear somebody say that that cannot be done, it's because either they really just cannot see it themselves, which is of course fine, or they just don't have anywhere near the amount of experience that's required to properly be able to physically identify them. Yet still, the truth, the real truth, lies within the genetic makeup of the animal. And thanks to work that can be done today in these genetic labs, we are able to find these things out. A new Greek tortoise was discovered. Nature intended them to be a certain way, and I truly believe it's our job to keep it that way, even under responsible captive keeping. So once again, congratulations to Paul and everybody involved in making this happen. Congratulations to Mark in producing those two unbelievable babies. You'll be seeing more of these guys here right on Garden State Tortoise's channel, and we're hoping that we'll be revealing brand new babies to you maybe in 2025, maybe in 2026. Regardless, we hope it's coming, and as soon as it does, we'll be sharing it with all of you.